Pete Brad here, CEO of StartupAUS. I'm with Ed Husic, who's Parliamentary Secretary for Digital Innovation and Startups, amongst other things. Just got a couple of questions for him today. So one of them was, where do you see startups fitting in within the overall federal policy agenda?
From the opposition's perspective, we've been saying for some time that if we can get the policy framework right and the ecosystem right for startups and early stage innovation, then that's got a big part to play in terms of lifting economic activity. So it's pretty crucial for us. We see a lot of the work of startups, particularly in Australia, as liberalising the way in which we work and live our lives. And so we need to basically embrace this and embrace it quickly and be able to work out what do we do to improve skills, access to capital, and the overall culture that supports the sector. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that for the first time in either a ministerial or a shadow ministerial lineup, we've actually dedicated startups within as a portfolio area. So normally people expect to see small business represented somewhere in the lineup. We're saying startups are quite different to small business because of the powerful jobs and economic boost that they can provide, and they deserve in their own right a particular focus. So that's we think that's a pretty big deal and a signal from our perspective about how highly we value the sector.
Great, because of the economic impact
Absolutely.
the sector will deliver.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the second question we had in today was, given Australia is about 10 years behind the startup scene elsewhere, what can we do to move quickly to correct that?
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we do need to do has a long runway to be able to get to the result, to the end point. When you look at, for example, fixing the massive skill shortages that confront the sector, if you're wanting to get young people coding, getting into computational thinking, getting ready to go and study STEM courses at uni or IT courses in a vocational pathway, that's like a 10-year time frame. But we need to get that work happening now. So that's why we've been encouraging some of that in terms of, from an education perspective, the policies that Labor's put out on coding and on STEM in unis, and also in terms of the startup year, being able to provide uni students with the avenue to start their own business if they got an idea in uni. We'll give them effectively a line of credit when they're at uni to start getting that idea moving. That's all long term. The changes that StartupAUS recommended on visas, we embrace that on the Labor side. We announced it as policy in terms of the reforms to entrepreneurs visas and graduate visas to try and get people in who've got the smarts and the capital. We reckon that can help right now if we can bring people in and infuse that within the talent pool in Australia to again get moving on addressing, at the heart of your question, the low rate of startup formation in this country. So we think there's some things there that need to happen, and opening up access to capital. And in that space, we've announced the Innovation Investment Partnership to try and bring super VCs together, identify the barriers that are preventing greater flow of capital to VC and therefore to early stage innovation. We think some of that stuff, we can get it happening now, is important, but the biggest thing is getting people talking, like getting in the public space, more of a realisation that if we get this right for startups, it's good for the economy. And by doing that, the most important reason we need to get more people talking is so that they can understand when governments make decisions and put forward policies to dedicate money to support the sector, that everyone goes, we get why that's important, that should be happening, and they support that. And as a result, we can get a greater level of startup formation in Australia.
Awesome. So I suppose my third question then, leading me right onto it, is what do you think the general public thinks about startups and innovation at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a tough answer. I don't think they think enough about it, and I think this is really where, in the political sense, there's a role to be played by political parties in championing the importance of startups to the economy. This should not be like a passing thought or a thought of the day. This should be an enduring policy priority. We need to get the public to appreciate that startups mean you've got a modern economy, a smart economy, a flexible economy, and what I've seen in other parts of the world, Peter, like for example, I visited Boston back in July, and when I saw what happened, for example, in some states there, when governors, when mayors, when presidents, and you can see it in terms of President Obama and the way that he's really focused on this. When you get the leadership of political parties talking about startups, that is huge in terms of trying to get the general public to think more. And I think that needs to happen. But that process of building awareness takes time, and we don't have a moment to lose.
No.
And I'm singing to the choir because you guys have been saying to us for ages through your Crossroads reports, get more focused on this, and that is what's happening.
Yes. So final question, bipartisanship. So if this truly is meant to be bipartisan, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, I think the problem with Australian politics, when you look at it over the last few years, it's just been one big brawl. And in that fight, you can't make any sense because it's just basically been high drama. At least now, with the party saying, we recognise we need to be a more innovative nation, that startups can help get us to that point. And there is a focus on developing policy, and it's a contest of ideas. This is a great space, an excellent space to be in. It doesn't mean that necessarily because one side comes up with an idea that you'll have the other side cheering them on necessarily. It'll happen to an extent, but I think we can't have the hyper competitiveness that's dogged politics in times past. We need to be able to say, yes, this is important. We need to say that the other side, if they're championing policy, yep, we support it. Here's our idea. You choose between those ideas, and I think it's good for the sector because it means you've got two political parties vying to get the support of the sector for the ideas that they're developing. So I think it means we can work together, but it also means there's competitiveness, not to the point it's destructive, but to the point that it's developing good ideas, solid ideas, stuff that helps you guys.
Awesome. And helps the Australian economy.
That's it, bottom line.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for listening.